Mr. Skipworth?
Doing okay, Madam Mayor?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm doing great.
Just to come back, I think that, one of the things that are reinforcing themselves to me as I hear my colleagues respond to the report and share some additional thoughts is it's very clear we need to reassert ourselves to create a deeper level of understanding, shared understanding of what the primary objectives are, what the goals, the overarching goals of the city are. Reestablish that necessary level of confidence that we need amongst everybody participating in this process. And then I think probably more so than any other time in recent past is I think that we need to, I think Patrick Lencioni talks about it in a few of his books, in achieving a vulnerability-based level of trust with people to really open up and show that, hey, this is what we've got to work on. This is why we've got to work on it now. This is why we've got to pursue what we're going to pursue now. To me, that sounds like a very critical component of what you've talked about tonight. I think it was Mr. Mondes that spoke about the future of the mayor position and talked about until we have a strong mayor role here in the city of Corona. I don't know that we need to necessarily have to wait to see that. I think that 494 or 496 people have joined together and represented a series of very clear views, one of which is that the direction is that the people of the city of Corona want a mayor who is a great, strong, primary advocate steward of what we're trying to accomplish here. And that we, as a team, need to be working for that same objective. And I don't think that necessarily requires an overhaul of the mayor's role in particular beyond what you described. We all share in that responsibility. It is absolutely correct and right that we have a presiding officer for our meetings and to have other ceremonial tasks and duties assigned to the position that the majority of us have already been able to experience. But in the end, our primary objective has to be that we all share and committed to the same series of objectives through a very strong level of advocacy, working with one another, working with absolutely everybody out there available to us. It was mentioned earlier, I think Mr. Scott spoke about it at the close of the calendar year when there is the transition. You mentioned it, I think, early beforehand. Do you see it as kind of a one type of a meeting to review all of that, or do you see it in like a two-part series? What's your...
Our other clients traditionally will hold a study session at a regular council meeting, like prior to, and then basically it's an opportunity to, one, if there's new council members, to bring them up to speed on what the strategic plan is, allow them to ask questions, allow them to weigh in on that so they know what's going on, and then also just to basically refocus the effort of the council as a whole. We find that in most jurisdictions doing that on at least an annual basis is a really good idea to kind of find out what's working, what's not working, where are you meeting your expectations, where are you not meeting expectations, where you need to allocate more resources and to be able to adjust accordingly. It's just like anything else. It's an ongoing, this is a living, breathing document. It's ongoing maintenance. You can't just push it aside and go, now we're going to do this. You have to actually deal with it every single day.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I want to thank you for making mention of one other aspect, which I think is probably indirect, but it's enormously valuable. The fact that this process has taken the course that it has and the information has come back the way that it has, it is very clear to me that every individual out there who is considering running for the privilege of representing the people of Corona should study this document very intently, because it's very clear what at least a portion, that sample of people throughout our community have identified as what's important to them and what they're looking for us to be able to provide. And while we've been working toward that in many respects, there are many other respects we need to reaffirm ourselves to that. And I think that anybody out there that's a candidate and looking at the city council in their future certainly needs to understand that you know, I think we're pretty clear on what the direction the people have given us. And it should be very easy for them to understand how they're going to fold in and be able to contribute to that future progress. So I appreciate that angle of how you shared that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Haley?
Thank you. Mr. Larson, are you working with the slides?
Which slide do you
Mike,
need?
are you there?
Oh.
Could you go back, please, to, there was an organizational chart, and at the top of it, it had the citizens,
Yes.
and then underneath that, it had,
It's farther forward. Yeah. Keep going.
okay, while he's doing that,
there.
there you go, there you go. Okay, great. 2 months ago, I articulated, before we even had this meeting, this chart. I used some Marine Corps vocabulary which was taken out of context, but basically I said this, that the Corona residents are the top of the hill. They truly, we are, I'm a citizen. We are truly the top of the hill. And they in turn elect the city council, and then we work with everybody. And I use this, and again, I used my Marine Corps analogy, which was unfortunate, but it was the truth. And as such, I hope that everybody does realize that the citizens are running the city, and we want to listen to the citizens, and we want to make this the best place for our citizens. And that makes me go into my probably more important comment. We've got 155,000 people who live here. Well, there's probably, I don't know, 80,000 kids. Well, maybe there's 50,000 voters. Well, out of 50,000, we had 500.
You have actually 110,000 adults over 18, approximately.
110,000 over 18, and we had 500 participate. As a professional, how do you feel about that?
Well, I always would like to have more. I always want more. But the reality is that most people, and this is not unique to Corona, this is all over California, it's actually all over the country, most people do not get involved on a day in and day out basis with their local government unless they actually need something that affects them directly. You know, they're building on their house, they've got a pothole on their street, they, want to open a business. That's just the reality. But what's interesting from a statistical standpoint, and that's why the sample size I mentioned earlier, even though it's small, once you get over a certain number, in this case it happened at about 220, 225, the demographic information and the way that the spread worked on what people were talking about did not change. So if we had gotten 5,000, statistically speaking, it probably would have looked pretty much the same as it does with 500. In the Northern California area, where Metropolitan Transportation Commission, they represent 4 or 5 million people, right? When we did their polling, and we used a telephone poll in that case, to get a statistically valid sample, we only went to 1,600 people. So it's never as huge as everybody. It really just depends by community. In San Luis Obispo, they only have 25,000 people. We had over 3,000 take our survey there.
Wow.
But there, it's just a different community. The thing you have to keep in mind is a lot of your folks are commuting. They're coming home. They're tired. They've got families. They're just not getting engaged in this kind of thing on a regular basis. Now, that doesn't mean you don't keep trying, but that's one of the reasons that we offset the survey with the various one-on-one interviews with segments, because we wanted to make sure that if we didn't get a group, we felt they weren't there on the survey portion of it, and they couldn't make the workshop, we could at least get the input from the other side. And that was the purpose of doing that, in order to back that up.
Okay, I have one follow-up question, and then I'll be done. It's the news are on pretty quick. Letterman is coming. I think we all have people in our own particular lives who we like and we trust, and we can ask them specific questions. And I have a very, very, very good friend, and I asked her, what do you think? And she is not in politics. She's in medicine, but and she says, well, I think that the citizens of Corona think that you guys are doing a good job. Because by and large, fire department does a great job, police department does a great job. The roads are in pretty good shape. They're very good shape, okay? And the library, what can you say bad about that? I think we're doing a very, for those the rest of you, I apologize. But she mentioned that you're doing a good job. Sure, you're going to have the whiners, but we all are. And so is that a takeaway that you might have, that the basic citizens think we're doing a good job?
That's actually, again, reflected in the data. In all the data that we got back, there was less than 1% of the population that thought it was a poor place to live. It was a bad place to live. The vast majority were saying that this was a really great place to live. And that was consistent. And it goes to what we find in public outreach in general and in talking with people. If you're generally happy, if your water turns on, if you can get your trash picked up, if you can get your kids to school and everything's going great, then most people don't really take the time to think about that. They just assume it's going great. And what I can say without any hesitation is that you will know in November if people think you're doing a good job or not. That's why they vote. And you already know from your past few elections, your voter turnout is not super high either. So it's sort of like if things are going great, they're happy. If you need to do more, which I think you always can do more, you can always do better, they'll let you know. But I say, I feel very strongly that we got a good cross-section of information from the population. We did as thorough a job as I think anybody could have done in terms of that cross-section of individuals. We went to people who we knew specifically were critical of the government and reached out to them specifically. And even those folks still had the same perceptions that we're talking about in these goals. Now, how you get there's definitely going to be some exciting council meetings to come and a few that'll go late. I know I want to tune in, but I think, I can stand by the back of the document and say, we did what we set out to do, which was engage the people and find out what they wanted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.